Hey guys, how you doing? I'm changing things up a little bit today. I want to talk about transgressive fiction, or more specifically, what the fuck is transgressive fiction? If we're to go by Wikipedia standards, transgressive fiction is a genre of literature that focuses on characters that feel confined by the norms and expectations of society and who break free of those confines in unusual or illicit ways. Because they are rebelling against the basic norms of society, protagonists of transgressive fiction may seem mentally ill, antisocial, or nihilistic. It's not bad. It's a passable explanation for me, or a definition. It doesn't quite hit the mark. And I suppose the reason why I'm doing this video is because I'm, well, one, very frustrated as a fucking transgressive fiction author about how to actually really get my work out there and get it read by people. But also secondly, that it is a bit of a minefield and everyone seems to have their own opinion of what transgressive fiction is. And I want to see if I can address it and really get a kind of concrete definition, or at least starting point, because I'm all out of fucking ideas these days, I swear to God. So, if you ask the average Jack on the street, do you like transgressive fiction? They'll probably go, huh? What the fuck is that? But if you mention, say, American Psycho, Requiem for a Dream, or Fight Club, they'll go, oh dude, I love that fucking movie. So, yeah, people are aware of what it is. It's just not in the kind of populist spectrum enough for people to instantly recognise it like they would, say, crime fiction, or romance, or fucking paranormal, or YA, which is another beef I have. Is YA thinks it's always being controversial with some of its subjects, or, you know, addressing real social issues, where it doesn't, and it doesn't really know how to handle them in the same way that transgressive fiction does. Transgressive fiction puts a magnifying glass over what we know already occurs. So the reasons for the subjects being quite controversial, say rape, paedophilia, sexual abandon or sexual abuse, crime, violence, and drugs. That's what it kind of gets lumped into. But really, if you look at all the kind of books that have been labelled transgressive fiction, they don't always tackle those kind of themes. And I think there's an ignored philosophical standpoint of transgressive fiction which doesn't ever get addressed. And I'd like to do that just for a little while here, because it really, a lot of the protagonists you'll see have a kind of existential crisis going on, and whether or not they employ a kind of nihilistic standpoint in order to deal with that is sometimes, you could argue that the character in Fight Club, for instance, he takes a more nihilistic viewpoint, or so he thinks he does anyway, or he thinks he's being given it by someone else. So his manifestation of Tyler Durden is really his subconscious desires of how to approach life and how to make progress with his life. And I think that is also quite often the point of transgressive fiction. But you'll also see books like Lolita often being voted one of the most transgressive. And of course it is, because what Nabokov really did with the subject of love and erotic literature is completely subverted by making it something so taboo. And even though we've all been aware of this, and we are all aware of, you know, they call it hebephilia in that because it's within our age range of fucking 11 to 13 or something. But really, he's a paedophile, so it's paedophilia. And what Nabokov so expertly did with that is subvert it so much that you'll begin to empathise with someone who is quite clearly a narcissistic lunatic and he's a fucking deviant as well. So he makes you transgressive via your own unreliability, which is mirrored by the unreliability of Humbert Humbert, which is why it's so fucking good. A more modern example would probably be Gone Girl, for the biggest one out there that there probably is. The main genre of it is probably crime thriller, will they, won't they, romantic, suspense, drama, I would say. that's kind of where it starts off. Not starts off, but that's its genre. And the best parts for me in that book, like with many a transgressive piece, are not really the actions or plot points that happen or occur. It's more to do with the kind of ideas that are within it. So when Amy Dunn is busy ranting about all the kind of different Amys she's been in the past, it really feeds into this kind of, you can really sense her anger and how she's tried to appease men by being the girl who drinks and parties and like makes out with other girls and sucks a whole lot of dick. Is like, she's aware of this being a complete role that she is employed just to win the approval of men, and she's really pissed off with herself for that. So a lot of the reasons for why she's doing what she does within the novel are usually because she wants either revenge or she wants to really push it home that, you know, she feels very kind of manipulated by the people around her, especially the men. So a transgression, essentially, is really what keeps a story going for me. If you look back at, say, the Bible, which is a fine piece of fiction, a little bit far-fetched at times, but still a great piece of fiction. You know, the most famous probably being Adam and Eve. I can't think of anything more transgressive than going against the word of God, especially when he specifically told you not to eat that fucking apple, Eve, you greedy whore. But really, her rebelling against that is exactly what transgressive fiction goes for, I would say. And it doesn't always have to be something negative. Just because you're going against the law, or say, the word of the God, why is that always lumped in with something that seemed to be negative? That's what I don't understand. If you look at Don Quixote, he rebels against the society, but because he's a bit of a buffoon, it's seen in this kind of positive light. But in essence, it's a transgressive act because he's rebelling against the confines of the society he's stuck in. So why it's always lumped in with kind of negative attributes, I don't really know. Even in Fight Club, he's really reaching for something, and I think what a few of the definitions have said that the protagonists of transgressive fiction are quite often looking to break out of their situation because the society they're in actually restricts them so much, and they feel very outraged by what has occurred because of that. And like in Fight Club, when it mentions the stuff that we've been sold this kind of lie throughout our childhood, and we all thought we'd go out into the world and either be rock stars or fucking movie gods or whatever, and when we realise we're not, and we're actually fucking more defined by the confines of the very hierarchical societies we're in, we have a right to be fucking pissed off. And of course I'm not, you know, condoning the actions taken throughout the novel, but I am saying that I think it's fine to transgress, and I think it's even imperative to, if you're really going to have any kind of self-realization within your life. So I think really transgressive fiction is more positive than negative in a lot of sense. But of course, when you look at stuff like Lolita or Requiem for a Dream, you see that how the transgressions of them actually are the cause of their downfall. So really, a lot of the time it's raising a point, and it doesn't always offer an answer, because usually the things that it kind of tries to go for are so beyond even the fucking realm of human intelligence that of course they're going to fucking fail. So it's just like, but surely that's worth doing anyway. I still think the higher pursuit of something grander than the fucking monotony of day-to-day life is still far more fucking respectable than it is to just be a sheep and play along to the kind of bullshit narratives that are going on around you. Whereas really what protagonists of transgressive fiction are going for is to try and find themselves within these societies. And a lot of the time it is because they are isolated and alienated. That goes par for the course. But the society they're in is the reason they feel like that. So for them to say, fuck that, and I'm going to try and make my own society even, I can't have anything but respect for that. So without getting into the other elements of it, because what I really think, one, if you're reading a book and you think, what the fuck am I reading? You're probably reading a piece of transgressive fiction. Two, if it contains philosophical elements such as existentialism and nihilism and reaching for something higher, or some kind of discontent with the current status quo, then you're reading a piece of transgressive fiction. Notes from Underground especially springs to mind, as would Fight Club in that regard. Thirdly, I have to admit, if it does have sex, drugs, violence, possibly paedophilia or sexual assault or kind of reckless hedonism, then there's, in all likelihood, you are reading another piece of transgressive fiction. So I think those are the three that really, they can be combined, but they don't always have to be, because there are other elements. Like in my main conclusion of it, I do think transgressive fiction lives within other genres rather than standing out as its own, which I'm not sure whether I'd like that to change, because I don't really think it can. Because with something like a romance, you know exactly what to expect should you want to read. I don't know why you'd want to read that, but, you know, because usually a romance is a subplot anyway. So for that to be the main thing is beyond me why people would want to read that. You know, the best pieces of literature always contain way more than just one fucking thing, whether you like to admit that or not, YA fans. So, for example, one could take Catcher in the Rye, which is more of a kind of literary piece about a teenage boy coming of age, but he is quite transgressive in the way he thinks and the way he acts within the novel. But in today's standards, I'm not quite sure how much it fits in, because he's more rebelling against a society that he wants to reject, but because it conflicts itself within the fact that he wants to defend his own innocence against a world that is quite, you know, brutal. So I do think it maintains transgressive elements. But if you take Fight Club, for instance, really that's another coming of age story, because it's about a man discovering his place in the world, and like he says during the film, he's a 30-year-old boy. And by the end of it, he does come to realise his own limitations and things like that, and yeah, it generally has a kind of positive ending. I'm not including the second one, which I haven't read, but I've heard it's fucking shit. So yeah, the less said about that, the better. If you take Lolita, it's, for some people, it's kind of the ultimate romance, which I find a bit disturbing, but it's also an erotic piece of literature. And Gone Girl, it's a crime thriller. So why transgressive fiction lives within all of those, I would say, are for the reasons I've just given. But also that it's very, due to the nature of the topics it discusses, which I think are basically things that we're all aware occur, but we'd rather pretend that they fucking didn't, which is a reason why transgressive fiction makes you feel uncomfortable, because it's triggering those neurons in your brain that you know are fucking there, and you know they go on, and you know they happen, but you'd rather keep it quiet and brush it under the fucking rug, because to admit that it happens is to admit that humanity and you are not that great after all, and you can make out that you're a peaceful, kind of fun-loving or even tolerant person, but underneath it all, there's a beast in you. And I think a lot of transgressive fiction really channels that. And so really what it's highlighting are things that we know occur and we know go on going on right fucking now, but we don't want to necessarily admit it. And I think if we're going to really evolve or even look to progress within a society, we need to recognise these things within ourselves and to really realise how capable we are of committing the same atrocities as the characters do within these novels. So maybe that condemns transgressive fiction to forever remain on the outskirts of the genre literary world, but maybe that's exactly where it needs to fucking be. Quite a few of the articles I read, or blog posts, said that many a protagonist of a transgressive piece reflects the condition of its author, i.e. meaning that the author feels very shunned by the society around them. And I'll be the first to admit that as a transgressive fiction author, and I'm proud to say that I fucking feel like that, because this society sucks a lot of dick, and I'm fucking sick of this planet and the way things work. And to deny that the state of fucking just politics alone is a complete shambles, and it's completely transgressive and just disgusting a lot of the time. This obsession with kind of celebrity culture and consumerism is sick, and the more people who stand up against that, and the more writers who try and really fucking attack that, I think the better. I've done it a little bit with my work so far, but mainly from a sexual standpoint, usually in a comical way. Because another thing of transgressive fiction, which I think makes mine transgressive, is the fact that you add the horror is very close to this kind of dark comedy, macabre type of humour. So it's almost overlaps each other. So the things that make you feel really kind of unnerved, the reason they make you feel like that is because you're laughing at it at the same time. So it's a kind of a double helping where you feel contradictory for your own reaction to it. And I think, yeah, for me, it's like that's kind of my subconscious aim a lot of the time, because I'm not always going for that. But there are a few, I do like to talk about the topics within Fubar, for instance, are antinatalism, nihilism, and existentialism, and the kind of horror of consciousness. I would say it's the kind of battle of the demons within, and how sometimes the demon has a point, and the more and more you deny that, the more the Union shadow gains power, and it will come out whether you fucking... in fact, denying it is what gives it its kind of fuel. So the more you do that, the more it's going to just come out in places that you don't even realise it's going to come out. So transgressive fiction for me really serves a far bigger purpose than many other genre will try to attempt. And not because it's all high and mighty or superior, not by any means, because what it really does is shows humanity for the kind of scum that it is. But what I think it is really trying to tackle is more than entertainment. In this world with nowadays, entertainment and art have kind of been gangbanging for so long, and art has been made entertainment's little bitch. So it's really been turned into something as, vacuous as a fucking waste of time YouTube video. Or, if you look at the state of television nowadays, television hasn't gone anywhere. It's just turned into a bucket of shit. So it's like, you look at all these kind of reality TV programs and stuff like that, and it's just, there's no culture in it. It's a fucking zombie culture. I forget why I've railed off into this now, but the art thing. But yeah, I don't know why art and entertainment are holding hands so much, because art isn't necessarily there to just entertain you. It's not meant to just carry you off into a different world and, escape reality for a few hours. Of course, that is one of its purposes as well, but it can also be a fucking challenge to read these books. And that's the whole point of them. You're supposed to be thinking, you're supposed to be... And like many of the characters in it, or the protagonists rather, they are notoriously unreliable probably 90% of the time. So the fun within it for me, or at least the kind of thing that keeps me reading or keeps me kind of entertained by it, well, maybe not, entertained was the wrong word to use, but enthralled by it, are depicting the things that I think are real and the things that I don't. So that's what makes the characters far more interesting, because you're kind of tackling something that you're not necessarily sure is true, and you have to come up with your own fucking ideas, basically. That's the whole point of it. You're not really supposed to just, you know, they're not airport books that you just pick up, piss through, and then throw away and never think about again. They're books that really touch and affect you in ways that you probably can't really expect. It's like the things that traumatise you when you're a kid usually end up being the things you want to fucking get off over when you grow up. So, and to shine lights on that and to really kind of analyse it, I think it's a brave choice to make as a writer in general. And I'm not fucking, you know, tapping my own back here. I'm just saying, yeah, look into the dark side and read about it. The most famous books of the last, I'd say, 50 to 100 years, I don't know how many can be labelled transgressive, but I bet a hell of a lot of them are. From Dostoevsky to Nabokov to Bukowski to Bret Easton Ellis. It's like there's so many out there, and they're all cult fucking classics now. And generally, they all get dominated by the genre that sells it. But underneath it all, they're transgressive pieces. And they're the best books around, for my money. So, yeah. In definition, transgressive fiction is something that may forever live on the outskirts of the genre literary world. But maybe it fucking should be, because you bunch of pussies don't want to fucking admit that you're just a little bit transgressive. In fact, you're probably very transgressive, but these are the things that people don't want to admit in polite society. So, but it will always be there, because the biggest books always transgress in one way or another. And it's almost like the people who defined the Wikipedia one, for instance, are the conservative fucking, you know, Judeo-Christian morality types out there who are afraid of anything that says nihilism in it. But really, I think if something isn't transgressive in any element, I don't want to fucking read it, to be honest. It's bound to be boring, and it's bound to be this kind of like, oh yeah, isn't it humanity so great? Look how we can overcome things, and we, you know, the human spirit and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think transgressive fiction has the human spirit in bucket loads, but it has it in every element that you can think of. The dark side particularly, but also the good side. You don't always have to be one or the other. It can be a yin-yang kind of collaboration, or kind of, you know, entity, for instance. But yeah, that's it. I'm off. If you're watching this on Tuesday, the 21st to the 23rd, I think 23rd or 24th actually, yeah, because it's 3 days. Sourced Up's Garden at Sleaze is available for free. I realised recently that I've been trying to pump my book so much that it gets a bit annoying. So if you are interested, it would really help out, because I'm not doing any promotion for it. So if you'd like to read my stuff, the first story, Something Borrowed, Something Blue, contains the protagonist of Fubar. So if you want to, but he's a much younger version, so you have to kind of realise that. Although it's only about 5 years before, he's only 19 in the first story, and he's a fucking sex-mad, alcoholic, lunatic out for fun. Whereas after the 5 years, when he's been at drama school and all the shit that's happened to him, you know, up until that point in the story for Fubar, it's changed him a lot. So I still very much think it's obviously him, and you know, that's one of the things you worry about when you're trying to cross over those kind of things. Is it enough like him? But I mean, he's basically my alter ego anyway. So yeah, it's fucking me. But yeah, it's available for free. I'll put a link down. You'll probably see the trailer for it flash up in a minute, because I also, Audible have given me a load of codes to get rid of. So if you are on Audible, which I am, I like it quite a lot, but I tend to listen to more non-fiction than fiction. Yeah, it's available. There's a bunch of codes in the description for that as well. So if you prefer it on audio, you can grab one of those. I've put 10 on there. They're all up for grabs. Once they're gone, I'll put some more up there, because I don't know how many I'm limited to. I think it's quite a lot. And of course, guys, the way you can help me out is just review it. I don't care if you slam it. I don't care if you fucking suck its dick. I don't care if you're neutral, but I need reviews because they're so hard to come by. And I'd really fucking appreciate it, because being a lowly transgressive author, there is a hard enough business as it is. And I think it's harder than it is for other authors out there, because people get credit for writing bullshit nowadays. Whereas I think what transgressive fiction authors are trying to do is a bit more important to me. And I think it is to you overall if you're watching this. So any kind of honest opinions always help me out. Obviously I prefer it on Amazon, and you will be able to do it more easily, because the fact that it will come up as a purchased kind of thing because you downloaded it, and because fucking Amazon are a bunch of cunts, they don't often make it easy for reviews to be put on there. But obviously, yeah, there and Goodreads, and yeah, it would really help me out, and I'd really appreciate it, and it would help keep this channel going, because, you know, the more credibility you've got, the better you blah blah blah. I'm not very good with this business shit. So anyway, I'm going to be trying to do quite a few videos this week, just because I want to get this channel going a bit more. It's too slow. So yeah, I might see you tomorrow or something. I don't know yet. But thanks for watching, and take it sleazy.